First of all, I'm going to say hello. I hope you've all enjoyed your lunch. I came here today to do my patient story, and I have loads of pages written out. And I'm in terror because I put a lot of thought into thinking what I'm going to say if I'm asked to speak at something. And then I kind of get a feel for the crowd, and I get a feel for what's been said, and I kind of change everything that I thought I was going to say. So I hope if I wander off a little bit that you'll be a little bit patient with me. So what I'm first going to say is my name is Anne Murphy. I'm 45 years old. In 2011, I was diagnosed with fallopian tube cancer. It was thought to be the very start of ovarian cancer. I'm sure you saw the pictures with Roz earlier on. She was showing you an egg, ovaries and little fingers. Well, that's where mine started. And I was diagnosed very early. I'm also very mindful of Roz's slides and charts that the figures looked very dismal, the percentages looked very low. And I wanted to kind of give you a story that says, forget about the figures and the stats. They're medical kind of jargon, because you are yourself, I am me, you're you, and what happens to us is our own journey. And believe it or not, there are so many people doing really, really well out there, okay? But my story started back in 2011. And while Roz spoke a lot about cancer treatments and medical treatments and chemos and options, I'm going to show you what has changed, even in that little short space of time, that's really, really positive. I'm also going to tell you the flip of the coin, which is that my sister also had ovarian cancer at the same time I was diagnosed, and she's not with us today. She passed after 21 months. The difference between Grania and I was that Grania spent 18 months going to GPs, doctors, chiropractors, new GPs, gastroenterologists, colonoscopies, polypectomies, with all the symptoms of ovarian cancer. Her complication was she was young, she didn't meet the profile. She was after having a baby. She first went when her baby was 6 months old. It was her first child. She was told it was pregnancy related, her body would take 2 years to go back to normal. She was told she was ovulating. She said she was ovulating for 20 odd years. This was different, but this is what she was told. So she was kind of put into a little cocoon of, go away and mind yourself. She felt very embarrassed and went down a different route, and then changed GPs, and the second GP did the same thing. So by the time she was diagnosed very late. And she kind of left a little legacy with me that I share her story and our story to show that really awareness is a really good thing. And as women and men and husbands and brothers and sisters, that we need to know about our bodies, and we need to be confident to speak up and get second opinions if we need it as well. When Grania was diagnosed, I was going to the doctor with symptoms as well. I'd had my second child, Molly. She was 11 months old. And like that, my doctor did tests on me. I was tired, I had pain down my side, dragging. Again, easily pregnant. He said pregnancy related, but we'll check you out. Then he thought I had an ectopic. Went for an ultrasound scan, and everything came back fine. So I put up with 2 babies, an 11-month-old. I went away. Grania was at her GP undergoing her gastroenterology tests, and in January of that year, she was diagnosed with late ovarian cancer. So I went back to my GP with my symptoms. I said, are you sure that I am okay? My sister has to go under treatment. I need to be well for her. And her baby was only 2 at the time. So he said, he got me the scans and showed everything, and everything was fine, he said. But he did suggest maybe that he'd do a blood test as well. What I didn't tell you was that we also had a really strong family history of cancer. And Michael later on is going to speak about cancer genetics. My mother had died when she was 41, her mother had died when she was 50, her first cousin had died when she was 37, all of breast cancer. So we knew we had a very high cancer history in the family. What we didn't have is we didn't have a confirmed gene, because we had no living relative to test. So we were brought up with this awareness that we had a gene, not that we had a gene, that we had something going on in the family, put it simply. So we were mindful of it. So we were toddling along to breast clinics, to the high-risk family clinics, having our breasts checked. And even at that time, when Grania had an appointment with her breast clinic, she had mentioned the pain down her side that she was having, and they said, we must look into your ovaries. But nobody did. And they left it with the gastroenterology. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is that really awareness is a really good thing. Your family history is really, really important. But it's no good if it's only important to you. Your medical team needs to understand your family history too. And they need to take your history in light of the whole history. Gráinne's history was taken in isolate. Her pregnancy was what they focused on. Her family history wasn't taken into consideration. So I digress. I go back to mine when I went back and said again to him, you know our family history. Now my sister has ovarian cancer. And they suggested doing blood tests, which I did. I went for the blood tests. And at this time then, a few weeks later, I rang up for my blood test and I told them we're fine. And then she said, well, actually, your CA125 was a little bit raised, but don't worry about it, because all of you know what the CA125 is, anyone with ovarian cancer. So she said, but there's a lot of reasons for it. So that was the practice nurse, and I said, hold on, we've got a strong family history. My bloods are raised, and my sister's ovarian cancer. And what I didn't tell you is that I'm an oncology nurse, and I'd worked for 20 years in cancer care, taught genetics, introduced it into the cancer care programs because of my background. And here we were, caught in this just black hole, as I would call it, despite our best efforts at minding ourselves. But because we didn't have a confirmed gene, we were treated. That's my point. Is that okay? Are you with me? So I spoke to the GP and he said, well, your scan is fine, and while it's raised, come back in 6 months' time. And I wasn't happy with that. I said, I can't do this. Gráinne is sick. I need to know I'm okay. As luck would have it, we had the same gynecologist because he delivered our babies. When Gráinne had gone for scans, he had reassured me there was absolutely no way it could be ovarian cancer. And he had the misfortune of telling me that actually you were right, we were wrong. And he said, I'm taking no chances with you, so I'm going to bring you in for exploration. And I'm going to look at everything under camera. And when I woke up after general anaesthetic, I said to him, is it cancer? And he said, no. And I said, phew, okay, but your tubes are inflamed. And so my tubes are, and he said, I took it out, and don't worry, it's in a little bag, and it's all gone for histology. And that was it. I had dealt with my tube was inflamed, that my reason, now I'm going to look after Gráinne. And a few weeks later, then he rang me to say, and I'm sorry, but you actually have cancer too. So when you spoke about it earlier on, we spoke about the chemo, and they talked to you about neoadjuvant chemo before to make the tumour shrink. But Gráinne was at that stage of her treatment. But I had no tumour now because they'd taken it out with the fallopian tube. So she was waiting to go for her hysterectomy and pelvic clearance, and I'm sure a lot of the women here have been through that procedure. So what happened then 2 weeks later is both of us went to meet Mr. Darcy and James's to discuss our hysterectomies. She'd had 4 cycles of chemo. So I ended up having my total abdominal clearance before Gráinne had hers 9 days before it. And then we both went to James's together and had our chemo sitting beside each other. The point I'm trying to make, I suppose, for our story is that it shows an awful lot of what is wrong with the system and that it's broken. And it's about awareness, because we were 2 sisters, 1 year apart, exact same history, family history. We were at the same stage in our lives in that Gráinne's baby was only 2 and my child was only 4 months older than her, my oldest. My second child was 11 months old. We attended the same GP with the initial symptoms. We were treated differently. Was it because I was a nurse, I have to think? Did I ask the right questions? Is that what got me where? I suspect so. We had the same obstetrician, same gynecologist, and then she had me as an oncology nurse, and a nurse just battering, go and get sorted out, you've got a cyst on your ovaries, where everybody said it wasn't. So on goes the journey in terms of when Gráinne was diagnosed, then she was, we were sent to Crumlin for bloods. So I don't know if anybody here is genetic, but we have the BRCA1 gene. You'll have heard Ros allude to the Angelina Jolie effect. So it's the same gene as Angelina. It's a BRCA1, which really, in the heart of hearts, we knew there was always one of them that we had. So that was confirmed for us, and that's really important. In terms of genetics, back in 2011, just to put in perspective, there was no, genetics was crisis management in Ireland. If you didn't have a living relative or somebody didn't write you to say there's a gene in the family, you weren't really taken seriously. There was, you know, the expertise wasn't there. But if you had somebody with the gene and you had the gene, you were going to be looked at very particularly. Does that make sense? So in terms of the BRCA, back then, 2011, Crumlin were managing it. And and as I said, very much crisis management. Now we have a genetic consultant looking after the cohort, which is us, the 10 or 15% of women in Ireland that are carrying this gene. What wasn't known back then was really, even to me, who was very familiar with genetics, who thought about it, who educated all our nurses about it, was the high risk of ovarian cancer for younger women, even with this BRCA gene. We were told after 40 to keep an eye on our ovaries, yet both of us were diagnosed before we were 40. And at the time, our history should have been enough with the symptoms to say you need an ultrasound, but it wasn't. So Grania, let me see. So Angeline Jolene, as I said, and I know we might look down it, but I think she's done a great thing for women, and I think she's done a great thing for highlighting ovarian cancer as well. She spoke about getting her ovaries out because her mum had passed from it. After Grania passed, December 2012, she died on Christmas night in 2012, I went to Cork down to a conference in Ovacare, the April of that year. And I'm sure some of the lads would remember me because I was really cross, I was really angry. I was in shock and disbelief because I could not figure out how we ended up where we ended up. And I'm sure a lot of women feel the same if they've had symptoms as to how did I get to here. And so I suppose I wanted some answers, and all the answers really came was that there was very little being publicly available about ovarian cancer. There was very little knowledge about it, and people that did have it, you know, we were all like Grania, very sick, and the treatment is very heavy, and the treatment is difficult, and the treatment is tough. And you know, Sinead spoke about being positive. It's really important to be positive, but how positive can you be when you're going through treatment, which is really, really hard? And it's fair to admit it, and I think we need to be honest and say it is a tough time. But at that time, I just realised that really women were going through this on their own, and June and the girls in Ovacare had really hit on something that was really needed in this country. And that was someone to bring all the women and men and families of people affected with ovarian cancer together, to advocate on behalf of women, to try and reduce these statistics that we saw, because I know Roz spoke about treatments, but really the key is if we were all caught a little bit earlier like me, would things be a little bit different? And that is through awareness. And awareness isn't only about the layperson, it's about the medical profession too. It's an education and an awareness. And the only way you make people aware is you speak about it, you talk about it, you include it. Down in Cork on that, I think it was the first meeting, or was it the second meeting you had? The second meeting in Cork. There was a small group, and since then Ovacare have done remarkable, tremendous work at all levels advocating for women. From a field you don't see, which is the medical field, fighting over tables with the National Cancer Control Programme, the GP Association. Who else have we gone to? We have gone to all of them basically, advocating for women for better treatments, and it is happening, the voice is being heard. Today, when Grania passed, I suppose a lot of people say, what do you do? How do you cope with things when it happens? Well, two things I had to do. One was I had to kind of follow through a little legacy that she left. And her legacy was to share her story so that it might save another girl going through the same thing. And I've been doing that. And the other thing was that I had to face surgery and have bilateral mastectomy. So I did that at the end of the year because of the real high risk of cancer in the family. And so the year afterwards I had a prophylactic mastectomy, bilateral mastectomies. And now, you know, I'm well and I've recovered and I'm doing good, and I suppose giving a little bit back. But we went on a little journey with family and friends to raise awareness, I suppose, of cancer, to honour a little wish. And it culminated with a night at home in Clare, where we put the DVD, a little video together of everything we had done. I'm going to share it with you because I think it's a tribute to Grania, and I think it's a tribute to raising awareness. It's a video that was made at the time. The funds we actually did raise at the end were 32,000, and we gave money to Ovacare and SOC and the Emer Casey Foundation, the Cancer Society and the Cancer Support Centres, which I want to talk about them after, more from patient perspective after the video. But would you like to see the video? Yeah, would you like to see it? Will I show? On the big screen, is it?
But over the years in particular as well, we've dealt a lot with the Sloan Sean Clark Clare Cancer Support Centre in Kilnamona, and we've met many brave people who've been through cancer, who've shared their experience of it, and who've spoke out to help others.
So why we came here today was to try and raise awareness to ovarian cancer, to let women know about it, because there's a public misconception about it out there. Women are of the misbelief that going for their smears is checking them out for their ovarian cancer, which it is not. Ovarian cancer for BRCA carriers has a risk of 40 to 60% lifetime risk for women to get this disease if you're a carrier. And then just listen to your body. You're the one that'll direct it. And keep you're pushing. The one that will, you are the one who will make the changes. Yeah.
You're such an inspiration. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us, Anne.
You're very welcome.
Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. And you let her go. Staring at the bottom of your glass, hoping one day you'll make a dream last. But dreams come slow and they go so fast. You see it when you close your eyes. Maybe one day you'll understand why everything you touch surely dies. But you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. Staring at the ceiling in the dark, same old empty feeling in your heart. 'Cause love comes slow and it goes so fast. Well, you see it when you fall asleep, but never to touch and never to keep. 'Cause you loved her too much and you dive too deep. Well, you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. And you let her go. Oh, 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 oh. And you let her go. Oh, 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 oh. And when you let her go. Cause you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. 'Cause you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Only know you've been high when you're feeling low. Only hate the road when you're missing home. Only know you love her when you let her go. And you let her go.
Okay. So, you know, I thought about showing you the video, but, you know, my husband said it's the journey you went on and it's your story, so share it. And, you know, the funds raised contribute significantly to Overcare and to SOC and the various cancer charities and support groups to help women with ovarian cancer, and that's the point behind it. Now, the last little slide that's up there about the cancer support centres, something I really want to speak about a little bit, because when an ARC is here, or ARC was here, I think, from Eccles Street and outside James's, but a lot of counties now have cancer support centres. And the thing behind the cancer support centre, if that wasn't there for Grania and I when we were going through treatment, I don't think we'd have even sustained the treatment. I don't think people understand the peace that is in the centres when you go there, or the help that's there for you. But often what happens is, and it's not just for people going through cancer, it's for their families or a relative or a friend. It gives great support. We used the one Eccles Street outside James's. It gave us peace of mind. We did some lovely meditations, we got some lovely treatments, and it kept us going. When I moved back to Clare, the Clare Cancer Support Centre was what kept me sane. I met a counsellor there, and she saw me every week to talk through everything that had happened, and so now I can talk, which is a really good thing. And if I could advise anybody, reach out and get the support, because believe it or not, it actually allows you time to actually get on with life away from all this. You can leave the sadness or the heart of the treatment nearly in the centre, and then life kind of goes on outside it. It's a huge support. The other thing that I'd like to say, you know, I like to leave on positive notes, because there is positive notes. In Clare Cancer Support Centre, there are 5 women with ovarian cancer. I met them, it's up in the middle of the country, it's right out in the outback. None of them were diagnosed with, bar me, with a cancer less than stage 3 or 4, and every one of them are well. So that's really positive, and that's 5 years down the line, so, and really well. So I think we have to focus on that. So just to remember that, stats are very hard. If I could give you advice, don't go on the internet. Even as a nurse and an oncology nurse, the figures and the language is medically driven. It's not for the single person going through treatment. As a nurse, I can look at it objectively, but I can also feel it as having been a patient. It serves no purpose. It'll just scare the living daylights out of you, because it's written from a medical perspective. So that's the best advice I could give you. Don't read up the internet. Ask your doctors. And the other people to really, really use is your clinical nurse specialists in the centres. If they're there and you're at home and you are worrying, pick up the phone and ring them and ask them, because it's like, a worry shared is a worry halved, but you'll be thinking about things. I have a pain here and I don't know, and is it back or is the treatment working? The best thing to do is pick up the phone and ring, because then you will get on okay, you will be fine. I'm trying to think of anything else that I'd like to give you as advice, parting. But the last thing I wanted to say, was really, really positive as well, was that when I started on the journey in 2011, there was one treatment. They were doing it every 3 weeks, Taxol. Now, even for me with the BRCA, they were saying you get followed up every 3 months, and then every 6 months, and then you push out to 5 years. Well, now they've even changed that and said, actually, no, we're going to see you every 4 months, because there's new drugs online, so if things come back, we have new drugs now to give you. So that's a really positive thing. Roz spoke about the different schedules they're waiting on a trial to come back. What they found with that as well is that while things mightn't have been great, the options are there. They're coming on stream. They weren't there 4 years ago, a very short time ago. Avastin wasn't being used at all, and now everybody knows about Avastin in the room, just in a very short time of 4 years. And the support centres have escalated hugely. And the biggest thing is that Overcare is now a really established ovarian cancer network that has an online forum to support women and their husbands, because there's a lot of men in the room too, which is really, really important. That's my story. Thank you.